Hi, this is Kevin Burke of Rachel's Vineyard. Many of you have seen some of the recent video from the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games in Paris. Sadly, viewers were subjected to a very colorful Satanic celebration of the death of the Judeo-Christian heritage of Europe, brought to you by the elites now in control of politics and culture in Western nations. French President Macron gushed that the opening ceremonies were a, quote, unique and magical moment. Meanwhile, in the real world, collapsing birth rates and uncontrolled immigration threaten the core culture, stability, and the very existence of France and other Western nations. While there are a number of factors contributing to the suicidal policies and actions of Western nations, there's a very influential abortion connection. And this is related to the impact of complicated grief and emotional trauma. Here in the U.S., there is a growing awareness of the dangers posed by the massive flow of illegal immigration at our porous southern border over the last 4 years. In early 2024, biologist Brett Weinstein visited the Darien Gap, a dangerous route for migrants between Panama and Colombia. He wanted to see firsthand what is behind the massive flow of economic migrants at the southern border of the U.S. In his interview with Tucker Carlson, Weinstein tells us, quote, "The lack of any control for those who are crossing illegally is stunning. I don't understand why my government is behaving in ways that seem to be sabotaging the interests of average Americans." Close quote. The question naturally arises, why are many of our leaders and compliant citizens engaging in policies that threaten the security and health of our nation? In our abortion healing outreach here at Rachel's Vineyard, we have listened to the stories of thousands of women and men that have come through our programs for emotional and spiritual healing. There's a common area of dysfunction and suffering that many women experience after their abortion, which may shed light on our nation's southern border. Recently in PregnancyHelpNews.com and in my last video presentation, I shared the testimony of Dora, who talked about her emotionally and physically traumatic experience of using abortion pills to end her pregnancy. I want to focus on one aspect of her story. It reflects the experience of thousands of women after abortion, especially those with a previous history of sexual abuse and other trauma. Dora shares, "I spent many years living in self-destruction because of my abortion. I would sleep around, get drunk 3 or 4 times a week, do drugs every day, put myself in situations that could have caused me fatal harm, going home with men I just met. I didn't really care about anything anymore, and the only time I felt alive was when I was having fun, partying, drinking my sadness away." For a time after the abortion procedure, some women can lose a sense of healthy boundaries and self-respect in their intimate relationships. This is true for some men as well after abortion. This vulnerability is deepened by the use of drugs and alcohol to deal with painful feelings of grief, anger, and shame. As Dora shared, "I was drinking my sadness away." For some people, these symptoms may last a few months, but for others, this self-destructive behavior could go on for years. This is connected to unresolved and powerful emotions that flow from the circumstances of the pregnancy, the decision to abort, and the abortion procedure itself, which is often an emotionally and physically abusive experience for women. This is especially true among women with previous emotional trauma and abuse in their histories. Without emotional and spiritual healing, 1/3 of women will go on to face other unplanned pregnancies and suffer multiple abortions. My wife, Teresa Burke, in her groundbreaking book, Forbidden Grief, which addresses abortion trauma, writes about the issue of multiple abortions, helping us to see this painful problem through the lens of traumatic reenactment. Now, you may be wondering, what does all this have to do with our nation's policies at the southern border and the satanic, silly Olympic ceremonies? Consider the following question. Can this same issue with healthy personal boundaries after abortion also impact the immigration policies and national boundaries and policies of a country with over 65 million abortions since 1973? Many of our leaders in business, academia, media, entertainment, and government in Western nations have either personally experienced abortion or have aggressively promoted and expanded access to abortion. Large segments of the population in the U.S. and other Western nations have lost a preborn son, daughter, grandchild, or other family member to abortion. Many have participated in the death of babies in the womb, for example, helping to pay for a college roommate or sister's abortion, driving a friend to the abortion center, voting for abortion laws. We've seen how many women over time can struggle with personal boundaries, self-destructive behaviors, and other abuse after their abortions. Might also a nation that has aborted 65 million of its own preborn children, over time, struggle with national borders, self-destructive behaviors, and attacks on its heritage, culture, and well-being. Remember, Dora, reeling from her childhood and abortion trauma, was vulnerable and allowed the precious gift of her deeply wounded heart, body, and soul to be abused. We can see a similar dynamic with the United States and other Western nations that have experienced high abortion rates over the last 50 years. Many of these countries are no longer preserving and valuing the precious gift of their Judeo-Christian heritage. Many political and corporate leaders, empowered by a compliant media, place global and ideological concerns over the needs and rights of their national body, their own citizens. Okay, now, let's look to the future. Perhaps we can begin to reframe the abortion issue from one of personal reproductive rights to an issue that directly impacts the citizens of our nation and the health of our constitutional republic. Reducing abortion, and over time moving the public to view abortion as an unacceptable response to unplanned pregnancy, is a matter of national survival. Equally important, we must educate the public of the great benefit and blessing of healing programs for those who have participated in any way in the death of children in the womb. Once our fellow citizens embrace this truth, we can develop the political will to transition from an emphasis on abortion rights to the promotion and expansion of the many life-affirming solutions to unplanned pregnancy. Politicians and business leaders can work on creating economic and workplace incentives for families to have children. Just as important is the example families can give on the great joy and blessings that children can bring, and grandchildren. Let's begin the healing and restoration of our great republic and the restoration of our Judeo-Christian heritage, while there is still time. God's peace and blessing be with you this day.